Well, the Chinese Communist Party, as most of us know, exercises coercion and control in a multitude of ways. But some of those ways are about as subtle as a sledgehammer. Take their latest manipulation of a social media account opened and operated by the Prime Minister, nonetheless. Without permission or request, the Chinese-owned and run platform WeChat didn't just ban or pause his account, which would have been clean, and at times, depending on what he says, fair even. It has been brazenly taken over, renamed and hijacked. 2 weeks ago, they rebranded it to Australian Chinese New Life. Now, there's a good reason for Scott Morrison to talk on WeChat to 1.2 million Chinese Australians. You should be on services like that. But now they can't access news from the Prime Minister of Australia. Those behind the PM social media accounts suggest that problems began surfacing late last year when Morrison went to the G7 summit, where China's cretinous list of 14 demands, you remember that, handed down by the Chinese embassy to an Australian journalist, was circulated at the summit. Now, Morrison's message to the world leaders was not to give China too much influence in their countries. And that's hard to prove, but the timing certainly matches. The Treasurer today called for a little bit more transparency from WeChat.
It's something that we would like to see rectified because it's a method of communication to the Australian Chinese community, which is very important.
So not only do the Chinese think they're free to meddle with web accounts, which reflect the policy and personal statements of an official from another country, we're talking about hijacking the government leader of another country, while allowing opposing political views and parties like the Labor Party to continue their attacks on the Prime Minister. There's nothing subtle or fair about that.
And it should be on offer to politicians of all political persuasions, and it shouldn't be a political football that is used. So I would obviously like to see people being given access, and it's very, very disappointing to see the Prime Minister being prevented from having that access.
Now, the Liberal chair of the Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Committee, James Paterson, said the Chinese simply won't respond to a request to reinstate Scott Morrison's account. They never want to pick up the phone, this mob, do they? And he's rightly called for all Australian politicians to stand together against the site.
It's really incumbent on all politicians to get off the platform. I think we should have a voluntary boycott off the platform. And I'm calling on the Leader of the Opposition, in particular, Anthony Albanese, to show some leadership here. He shouldn't allow a foreign government to dictate the terms of our public debate. He shouldn't allow a foreign government to decide how a Prime Minister can speak to his own people.
Dead right. A boycott of WeChat is the least all Australian politicians should do. Erase it tonight. It's a disgusting offence to misrepresent another person online, let alone a Prime Minister of another country. So when will Anthony Albanese order his team of MPs, to boycott WeChat? Well, he couldn't answer that directly today. Surely the Labor Party aren't still beholden to their old contacts in the CCP.
I'll have a chat with him directly rather than a backbench MP. I'm certainly of real concern about any national security implications by any interference by any government in the process.
No. He could have just said simply, you bet we will. I heard about this morning. We're meeting with our social media team this afternoon. Immediately, we won't support this kind of identity fraud by this Chinese WeChat group. No, he wouldn't say that. He had to have a dig at James Paterson. Albo couldn't say that, or doesn't want to be seen by the Chinese to say that, maybe. I wonder why, do you think? It's blatant foreign interference, for starters. It gives the Chinese superb access to 1.2 million Chinese Australians, which can be used to assist in the voting out of governments. That would be their most hated government, the Morrison government, which, of course, would benefit Albo and Labor. That puzzle is now solved. That's why, for now, he's happy to legitimise censorship. I'm going to count down the days and how many days it takes before Labor MPs stand up to WeChat and Beijing. It could be rather instructive of what kind of pushover an Albanese government might be when it comes to China.